People love to say that doing more volume in the gym is what is going to lead to more progress. The reality is that the people who say this, the online influencers that are proposing this narrative online, all of them take steroids and they dedicate their entire life to building muscle. This does not correlate into most people who are natural bodybuilders, who have lives outside the gym, and who can't dedicate all of their time to rest and recovery and to building muscle. The reality is that when I cut down my volume in half, and I stopped training 6 days per week, I stopped doing 6 or 7 sets per muscle group every time I went to the gym, and I actually started to be more concise with my workouts. I would only train 3 days per week. This is when my physique started to go from looking like this to where it is now, where it looks like this. So I found that over the course of my fitness journey, as soon as you cut out volume and you cut out all of that waste and you actually optimize your rest and recovery, then your physique is really going to start taking off. And just adding in more volume and thinking it's going to help you build the physique that you want is a huge mistake. So point number one as to why more volume does not equal more progress is there's a point of diminishing returns. So for the first set you do in a workout is going to offer the most amount of stimulus. And then a point of diminishing returns kicks in after this. And each and every set after this first set generates less and less stimulus on the working muscle. So the reason for this is because as fatigue kicks in, your ability to actually recruit motor units and activate your muscle fibers becomes more and more compromised as you go through the workout. So the first set is the most productive, and then as you go throughout the workout, each set gets less and less productive and offers less and less stimulus. So this just tells you that you can actually scale volume to the point where you're not getting anything out of it. And once you've had gone through those stimulating sets and once you've accumulated too much fatigue, you get to the point where all you're really doing is just creating muscle damage, creating an excess amount of fatigue, and you're not actually creating any more stimulus and forcing that growth mechanism to happen in the gym. So what you're really doing is you're wasting your time, you're sapping your energy and your motivation, the workout becomes grueling, and then worst of all, you're affecting your recovery, which is absolutely essential for muscle growth. So building on this point, I think personally that you only really have about 10 to 12 stimulating sets in a workout, provided that you're training close to failure. If you do anything beyond this, the reality is that you're actually not going to be creating much growth or any growth at all. So this is why training more does not equal more progress. Point number two is that recovery is absolutely essential if you want to build muscle growth, and this should be prioritized. A huge mistake that a lot of people make is they're too worried about how often they're training, how much workouts they're doing in a week, and they're constantly thinking about the stress of the stimulus and just working the muscle harder. Whereas the reality is that if you overwork and you overtrain in the gym, your nervous system is going to come fried because this is way too much stimulus for a natural bodybuilder, and your ability to actually recover from this becomes compromised. And the reason why recovery is so essential is because you're not actually building muscle in the gym, but you're building muscle outside the gym with proper rest and recovery. And if your muscles aren't fully recovered when you hit them and when you work out in the gym, then your strength is going to be severely compromised. And the only way that you can build muscle is by increasing your strength. Strength and muscle growth go hand in hand. So if you haven't optimized your recovery, your muscles haven't gone through that adaptation, and they haven't actually come back fully rested, recharged, and ready to go, then you're just going to be wasting your time in the gym. Your strength is going to be compromised. Your ability to recruit motor units is going to be severely compromised. And overall, you're not going to make anywhere near as much progress. If you think about a world-class sprinter, for example, if you saw them the morning of their workout, the morning of their race when they were going to be competing, and you saw them really exerting their energy, sprinting, doing a lot of high-intensity training, you would probably tell them that they need to slow down because you want to be rested and recovered when you go into that session. It's the exact same as going to the gym. If you're working out every single day and you're not optimizing your recovery, then the next time when you go into the gym, you're going to be tired, you're going to be unmotivated, your energy is going to be sapped, and your working muscles haven't had enough time to fully recover. So this is why recovery is absolutely essential and it should be prioritized. My last point is that the more volume you have in your workout, the less likely it is that you're actually going to recover properly. So the more volume equals the worse recovery. The reason for this is because as you accumulate muscle damage and as you accumulate fatigue, what happens is your central nervous system, which is essentially your brain and your spinal cord, sending nerve impulses into your muscles to activate your muscle fibers. This becomes compromised. And if you continually work this and you put stress on this nervous system, then your ability to actually recruit these motor units is going to become compromised. And therefore, your strength in the gym is going to go down. So it's really important to understand that if you just continually add and add more volume, then your recovery is going to take a huge hit and you're not going to make any progress. So that being said, this is my advice for you to take away from this video to implement into your training to make it more productive. And I think the best advice I can give you is to just cut down your training to 3 days per week, 45 minutes in the gym each time. I found that personally, when I went from training 6 days per week for years to cutting it back to 3 days per week, this is where my progressive overload just took off. Once I started actually giving my body enough time to fully rest and recover, I found that each and every time I was going back into the gym, I was hitting PRs constantly, I was continually making progress, and the weight I was lifting just kept on going up and up continually. So anything more than 3 days per week is counterproductive, because if you have back-to-back workouts, you haven't given your central nervous system enough time to fully recharge and recover. And so 3 days a week just works perfectly, because each and every time you're in the gym, your muscles are fully recovered, and your nervous system is fully recovered, and you're ready to go. So you're only training when you're fully recovered, you have the most amount of energy, and your muscles are in growth mode, and they're ready to go and make progress. And anything more than 45 minutes is just dragging on and just creating fatigue without giving you any stimulus. So I think this is the formula that's really worked for me. Once I started cutting out junk volume and just doing 3 days per week for 45 minutes, my physique really took off. And that's why doing more volume does not equal more gains.